Alright, this is the Hobo Stove. I first encountered a Hobo Stove when I was doing a survival expedition, taking a class with Wilderness Awareness School. And this was out in the deserts of Washington. I don't remember which one. But the agreement they had was they couldn't leave any trace of fires for our survival expedition, so they carried a Hobo Stove. It was really good because it was very economical. You can just use small sticks, and because it's metal, it will radiate the heat better. It's a more efficient use of fuel when fuel's limited. And also, when you get done, it's a lot less impactful than a huge fire pit. So, as with any fire, start with tiny sticks. I've got these dead Lesbodisha stalks. We might do another video on just fire in general, but the same concept. Never underestimate the power of tiny sticks. That is your friend to start a fire. And the Hobo Stove works best when you just constantly use, here's bigger sticks, getting them ready. And I just stick my lighter in the little door. Get the fire started. And then to build it up, I can just start taking slightly bigger sticks, still twigs, and dropping them in these little holes. I made this one day when we were walking around a mall, and I wasn't even really looking for stuff to make a Hobo Stove, but I happened to see a tomato can and then a couple clothes hangers. So I just bent the clothes hangers. These are the crossbars on top and the handle if we were backpacking and I wanted to carry it that way. But it's good to get a good bed of coals. But since I don't want to make a super long video, I'm going to start trying to boil this water right now. This is water right out of the creek, so it's cold. Put it in the middle here. And I just feed it. So the Hobo Stove, the great thing about that, use the tiny sticks to get it started, and then you can just find any of these scrap sticks from around your fire, the stuff that you always see laying around. And if you're in a desert or something where wood is hard to come by, you can just find any old thing as long as it's poisonous. You got to know your plants a little bit. Of course, you don't want to burn poison ivy, and in these mountains we don't want to burn a lot of rhododendron. That can make us feel bad. But other than that, just any small sticks you throw in are pretty fair game. And we'll see how close we get to a boil before this video's over. With a pan, damn, I meant to show this part, but the ventilation is really important with the Hobo Stove. Sometimes if we're cooking something in a pan, you can see the pan is bigger than the top. So that can kind of smother it. I've been trying to find the right ratio of holes in the top and the bottom, so it'll still cook well, but it still can kind of smother it and dampen it when I put a pan on top. So what I do is I get two sticks and put them over the Hobo Stove. Of course they eventually burn, but I'm usually done cooking before they burn. So the pan would sit like that. That allows enough ventilation in the top. The fire keeps going and cooks really well. We use this in parks. We use this in a lot of places that we couldn't get away with making a fire.
How'd you make the holes in the can, Gumby?
And that's another thing I wanted to talk about. Thank you for asking. When you make the holes, of course, it's a can, so it can dent in. I take a stick and I break it to about the diameter of the can. I stick that in there, kind of wedge it in, and then I got a hammer, flathead screwdriver, and I kind of go at an angle and pound it in, and then I ream the screwdriver to make the hole. Right here I started it, and then I've got some tin snips. There might be another way to do that. If you don't have tin snips, I don't know what it is. This is my second or third Hobo Stove I've made, so I've been lucky enough to have tin snips every time I've made one. But I just start finding, as you can see, I'm just grabbing any old little twigs that are just around every campfire I've ever seen. I just keep feeding it. Throwing them in. And I'm not going to go through the trouble of moving it right now since we're making a video, but anytime I can see that the smoke is going in a certain direction, try to face the door towards the wind. That's the same as you blowing on it, which is the same as turning up the heat.
Yeah, and I can attest to that. If you're cooking and the fire starts to go out, if you just look where the smoke is going, if there's any wind at all, and face the door of the Hobo Stove towards the wind, that can help immensely. And then if you feed it a little bit more, you don't want to keep sticking things in there if it's starting to die, but you do want to feed the fire. That can help with keeping your cooking temperature pretty regular.
Yeah, and this scrap wood wouldn't go very far in a big fire pit. You know, I'd be looking for logs like we've got. But in a hobo stove, it does pretty well. Just keep feeding it. The main elements of the hobo stove are the door, which you can also feed things through the door. I tend to not like to do that unless I have something big like a pan, and I need to, because it interrupts the airflow. It doesn't work as well. Now, Teresa, you can get a shot of that water. It's already starting to simmer. So we don't have a full boil yet, and that started from cold river water. We're in the mountains. So the hobo stove is pretty efficient. And sometimes I add big stuff like I just did, but it's not ideal. But the main point I'm trying to get across is you can grab anything and start adding it to the hobo stove. We've cooked, we've hard-boiled eggs. What else have we cooked on one, Teresa?
We made quesadillas.
Quesadillas, yeah. Coffee.
All sorts of different meals in a pan, or like just heating up soup or something. And if you happen to have a lid, of course that's going to help trap some of the heat in your container. So one time I remember, this wasn't with Gumby, but I was using a Coleman stove, and the it's boiling.
Yeah, look at that great boil.
I just found a rock that kind of served as my lid and what have you. So if you're impatient, or maybe you don't have a lot of fuel, you could use that lid concept to keep the heat in. But that was pretty quick.
Yeah, now that water is boiled and safe for drinking, and here's what I was talking about with the pan. This works really well to give you the airflow and everything you need. So let's see, anything I'm leaving out on the hobo stove?
No, I think you talked about just a big can. It could be some sort of from a restaurant. Cans they have behind there, like at their dumpster. A clothes hanger, metal clothes hanger that you can fashion for the crossbars to cook on, as well as the handle, and then using a screwdriver with something behind the can to make the holes for ventilation, and if you have tin snips, to make the door that way.
And it cools surprisingly quick. Once you knock out the embers, right it up. Get it past the crossbars, and within minutes this is going to be cool enough to touch. I'm always surprised at how quickly this cools, just like how quickly it heats. So there's drinkable water. I've boiled it, and it's great because we can keep this hobo stove indefinitely, and if we can find twigs, which where are we ever at that we can't find twigs? We've got heat. We've got a way to purify our water, cook our food, and we've also got a Coleman stove, which is great, but eventually you're going to run out of fuel. It's not as self-sufficient.
Right.
And these things last a long time. I've yet to have one burn up so bad I couldn't use it anymore. The last one I had to replace was because I leaned on it when I was backpacking. It was on the outside, and I just dented it so badly I ruined it. But other than that, simple, efficient, great, the hobo stove.